Greetings, Guardians. This is Olympus Alliance. Guardians? There are tanks that protect their team. There are tanks that control the battlefield. There are tanks that deal damage. And then, there is Cleaver. Because the Butcher doesn't simply stand on the front line waiting to be attacked. He pulls enemies into danger. He sacrifices his own health. He stuns. He disrupts formations. And while doing all of that, he keeps delivering pure damage. And after everything that has happened recently with Chaos, Cleaver has become much more than just that iconic hero everyone recognizes. So today, let's talk about Cleaver, the Butcher. What makes him different? Why his mechanics can be so dangerous? And especially, which heroes can turn his sacrifice into an advantage? Because with Chaos, Guardians, sometimes you have to lose something to gain something much bigger. Let's start with one of Cleaver's most important characteristics. His basic attacks deal pure damage. And because Cleaver fights directly on the front line, those attacks can hit more than one nearby enemy on the opposing front line. That immediately separates him from many other frontline heroes. Because pure damage doesn't care about armor. It doesn't care about magic defense. It cannot be dodged. And it isn't something you're going to solve through magic reflection. The damage arrives raw. And that's particularly unpleasant for fragile heroes caught close to the front line. If that hero doesn't have enough healing, enough health, or another way of surviving the pressure, Cleaver doesn't need complicated conditions. He just keeps cutting. But the front line isn't the only place Cleaver can reach. And this is where one of his most recognizable mechanics enters the battle. The hook. Normally, the furthest enemy can feel safe. They're sitting behind the entire formation. Protected by tanks. Protected by positioning. Doing their job from a distance. Cleaver looks at that formation and says, "No. Come here." He grabs the furthest enemy. And pulls that hero directly toward the front line. And Guardians, don't look at this only as moving one hero from one place to another. Cleaver is breaking the enemy formation. A hero designed to operate safely from the back can suddenly find themselves beside the Butcher. Skills that depend on positioning can be disrupted. The protection that hero had from the rest of the formation can disappear. And most importantly, Cleaver has now created an opportunity for the rest of your team. Because the enemy that was difficult to reach isn't difficult to reach anymore. And once Cleaver brings that victim closer, things get even worse. Cleaver can sacrifice part of his own health while dealing pure damage to himself and nearby enemies. And this is where I think people sometimes misunderstand the philosophy behind Cleaver. Normally, when we see our tank damaging himself, our first reaction is, "That's bad." But with the correct chaos composition, it isn't necessarily a weakness. Sacrifice can become fuel. Cleaver knows exactly what he's doing. He's trading health to generate pressure around him. And against heroes with a smaller health pool. Especially if they don't have enough healing or another way to mitigate the danger when their health becomes low. Being pulled beside Cleaver and then receiving that pure damage can become an absolute nightmare. And the Butcher still isn't finished. His axe can strike the nearby enemies in front of him. Again dealing pure damage. But this time also applying a stun. So now combine everything. Cleaver is occupying the front line. He's applying pure damage with his regular attacks. He drags a distant enemy into danger. He damages himself and nearby enemies. And then he can stun the enemies standing around him. Damage, displacement, sacrifice, control. All coming from the same frontline hero. And physically, Cleaver is exactly what you would expect from a butcher who's apparently been eating extremely well. This guy is heavy. His strength gives him a naturally enormous health pool, alongside physical attack, and the resistance required to remain at the front while creating all of this chaos. But Guardians. This is where Cleaver becomes much more interesting. Because we don't build teams by taking 5 individually strong heroes and throwing them together. You know what we always talk about on this channel. Synergy. And Cleaver's sacrifice mechanics can become the starting point of some beautiful chaos interactions. Because in the right team, Cleaver losing health can help somebody else become stronger. Let's begin with Aidan. Aidan is an incredibly natural partner for Cleaver because he brings powerful healing into chaos compositions. And that's exactly what Cleaver wants. Think about the cycle. Cleaver is on the front line. He is taking enemy damage. He's also sacrificing his own health through his mechanics. And Aidan helps compensate for that constant health pressure. So Cleaver can continue doing what Cleaver does, while the team works to keep the butcher standing. That's the beauty of the interaction. You don't necessarily try to stop Cleaver from sacrificing. You build around it. Then we have one of my favorite combinations right now. Kendall and Guardians. Cleaver and Kendall together can become a pure damage festival. Kendall's sweet torture rewards the type of environment Cleaver naturally creates. Sweet torture increases magical critical hit chance for Kendall and qualifying allies who have taken damage from their own or allied skills since its previous activation. Well, what does Cleaver do? He damages himself. Suddenly, something that looks like a drawback becomes part of the condition another Chaos hero wants to see. And then Kendall takes this relationship even further with Purge by Pain. Because her legendary effect allows allied pure damage to become critical. And Cleaver. Pure damage is everywhere in his kit. Now you understand why I call this a festival. Cleaver is already delivering pure damage. Kendall is interacting with heroes who damage themselves. And then she brings the possibility of turning allied pure damage into critical pure damage. That's synergy. Not because a description tells us these two heroes belong together, but because one hero's natural behavior creates exactly the environment the other hero wants. Then we have Peach. Peach becomes another interesting Chaos partner because she can hit harder when a Chaos ally is positioned in front of her. And who better to stand there? Cleaver. A gigantic frontline wall. Absorbing pressure. Creating disruption. And allowing Peach to operate behind him with the conditions she wants. Cleaver brings enemies into uncomfortable positions, while Peach gets the frontline chaos presence she needs to increase her offensive pressure. Simple interaction, but very effective. Then we have Kayla. Kayla benefits from having chaos allies on the battlefield through her healing mechanics. So once again, Cleaver isn't simply occupying a tank slot. His presence contributes to the chaos environment Kayla wants around her. And while Cleaver is causing absolute madness at the front, Kayla can bring her own aggression into the battle. This is something I really like about modern chaos compositions. The faction doesn't feel like 5 independent heroes anymore. One hero's risk becomes another hero's opportunity. And nobody represents that philosophy better than Cleaver. Then we have Zesha. Now, Cleaver doesn't care about magic attack himself. That's not why we're pairing them. Zesha cares about something completely different. The sacrifice. Cleaver sacrificing his own health is exactly the type of interaction Zesha loves because it can contribute to her permanently increasing her own magic attack. So Cleaver is hurting himself to pressure the enemy. And Zesha looks at him and basically says, "Please. Keep doing that, that's beautiful chaos synergy." The sacrifice isn't wasted. The team converts it into additional offensive potential. And the longer Zesha is allowed to benefit and grow, the more dangerous that magic attack can become. Now let's talk about another very clever interaction. Jorgen. Remember Cleaver's hook? He targets the furthest enemy and brings that hero forward. That alone destroys positioning. But after Cleaver changes the enemy formation, Jorgen can take advantage of the new positioning with Torment of Impotence. Suddenly, an enemy who was isolated at the back isn't isolated anymore. Cleaver has brought that hero closer to everyone else, potentially allowing Jorgen to capture more value from his control. This is exactly what I mean when I say Cleaver doesn't only deal damage. He creates opportunities. He changes where the battle happens. And your other heroes can punish the formation he creates. And finally, Guardians. We have to talk about the new Dorian. Because if we're talking about modern chaos sacrifice compositions, Dorian belongs in this conversation. His sacrifice interactions are constant. And that is incredibly important when you're building around mechanics that react to self-damage and allied skill damage. This isn't one isolated activation. You're creating a battle where sacrifice keeps happening. Health is being traded. Mechanics are being triggered. Healing is compensating. Damage is increasing. And Cleaver can take advantage of that environment again and again throughout the battle. That's why the new Dorian feels so natural beside him. With heroes like Cleaver, Aidan, Kendall and Dorian together, the chaos philosophy becomes incredibly clear. Sacrifice isn't simply health lost. It's an investment. Cleaver sacrifices. And the team heals. Cleaver sacrifices. And Kendall can interact with that self-damage. Pure damage can become critical. Dorian keeps the sacrifice engine moving. Aidan helps sustain the chaos core. Zesha can turn sacrifice into increasing offensive power. Peach benefits from the chaos frontline. Kayla benefits from chaos allies. Jorgen can exploit the formation Cleaver has already destroyed. Lose something. Gain something? That's chaos. And that is why Cleaver can be so much more valuable than simply looking at his individual damage numbers. The Butcher isn't fighting alone. He's creating a battlefield where the heroes around him can become better. So Guardians, if you're building Cleaver, don't only ask, how strong is Cleaver? Ask, who benefits from what Cleaver is already doing? Because that's where you start finding the really dangerous combinations. Aidan for powerful chaos healing and sustaining Cleaver through his aggressive sacrifice playstyle. Kendall for those self-damage interactions and the potential for an incredible pure damage critical engine. Peach for additional offensive pressure behind a chaos frontline hero. Kayla for another aggressive chaos interaction and healing benefits from chaos allies. Zesha because Cleaver's sacrifice can help feed her permanent magic attack growth. Jorgen because Cleaver's hook can destroy positioning, and create better opportunities for his control. And Dorian because constant sacrifice can help turn this entire concept into an engine that continues working throughout the battle. And Guardians. That's what makes the Butcher special. He's not elegant. He's not subtle. He doesn't politely wait for the enemy formation to make a mistake. He creates the mistake himself. He grabs someone from the back, throws them into the nightmare, sacrifices his own health, spreads pure damage, stuns everyone around him, and trusts chaos to turn that madness into an advantage. That's Cleaver, the Butcher. And with the direction chaos has been taking, he finally has more heroes around him capable of turning his most dangerous mechanics into genuine synergy. So now I want to hear from you. Which Cleaver combination are you using? Are you running him with Aidan and Kendall? Have you tried the new Dorian beside him? Are you building around Zesha's sacrifice interaction? Or have you found another Cleaver synergy that we should test? Drop your teams and your results in the comments, Guardians. Because Cleaver has changed. Chaos has changed. And I have a feeling we're nowhere near finished discovering what this new Chaos family can do. Stay tuned. Stay sharp. And as always, salute and friendship.